Welcome back to the Good Night podcast. Today, I'm delighted to have Mario Martinez Jr., CEO of FlyMSG, host of the Modern Selling Podcast, keynote speaker, recognized sales expert, and all-around awesome dude. Mario, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Brian, I'm so excited to be here with you today, buddy. Thank you so much for having me.
There's the energy that I love about Mario right there. You guys can hear it. Mario, would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Yeah, you bet. So you gave a partial introduction right there, but that having been said, CEO of Vengreso, which is the creators of FlyMSG. And there's actually a strategic reason why we didn't convert to the name to FlyMSG, but we will be doing that very soon, actually. That's a whole story behind that related to Google. But that having been said, I spent 27 years in B2B sales, marketing, and executive leadership. I literally started my first opportunity in software sales at 19 years old, doing then called telemarketing. Now it's SDR and BDR work. And that was 19 years old. And at 21 years old, I was making six figures. And I said at 22, what do I need college for? Because I was going to UC Berkeley and I was making six figures, and it was a very great opportunity. And by the age of 22, I bought my first house right here in the Bay Area. And so I was like, I don't need Cal. What's this for?
That's an accomplishment at any age, by the way, is buying a house in the Bay Area. I mean, to do it at 22 is amazing.
It was really great. It was a great accomplishment, especially for being coming from a poor background, a Mexican family. And I was the first in my family to go to college, right? So it was really a great opportunity. But that having been said, I've spent my time inside of infrastructure as a service, consulting, SaaS, and software space, along with now professional services. And I took my company, which became the world's largest digital sales prospecting training company, and I converted it in April of 2023 into a SaaS company. So that's a little bit about my background, man.
That's amazing. What a cool journey. And we have a lot of similarities, right? You know, I'm first in my family to go to college, as far as I know anyway. Grew up poor, went to UC Berkeley as well, but for my graduate degree. So yeah, we share so much in common. And I also had this six-figure job in college, like you, and almost dropped out, but I was selling cars. And I was doing really well. I was making 10, maybe 20 grand a month, some months up to 25 grand, some months 5 grand, but on average, you know, like pretty consistently 10 to 15 grand a month. I'm like, why am I going to college again? Like I saw these, know, I almost dropped out. Just I in some alternate reality, I'm just like a GM at some car dealership making probably $1 million a year. Like a completely different life, you know?
It's funny you mentioned that because I actually had a leader 1 year when I think I was 26. He said to me, hey, I'm going to put it into your performance plan that I want you to think about. You know, you should go back and get a college degree. And I was like, yeah, okay. Why do I need one? He's like, well, you know, all things being equal, you really should think about this. It's like, okay. That year went by. The next year he said to me, hey, I really would like you to consider this. This is very important. I think you're going to really regret it if you don't finish it. And I was like, yeah, okay. That year went by. And then the third year he said, hey, listen, I'm putting this into your performance plan. If you don't do this, you will not pass, and the company will pay you or pay for you to go back and get your degree. You're going to thank me later, because one day when all things are equal, it's going to come down to the degree. And so I did, and the company paid for it. And I was really irritated that he made me go back, because it was 18 months that I thought I had to go to night program at St. Mary's College right here in the Bay Area. But now looking back, man, I'm so thankful that he forced me to do that. It was such a great decision to finish that. Yeah, I didn't like him at the time, but it definitely worked itself out.
That's amazing. I love that story. And yeah, and I think, you know, you're obviously a good salesperson, and we should get into that and what some of your sales philosophies are. But I find an educated salesperson is a very dangerous thing in a good way. Like, I think if you have that bachelor's or master's, like you can, especially if you're in software sales or infrastructure, and there's stuff that you need to understand at a very deep level. I think that degree can just make you a ninja, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, there's definitely some pros to it for sure, especially if you're in business. There's life experiences that you'll learn that, you know, you'll take right into the workforce for sure.
Do you think people need to get college degrees nowadays? Do you think it's still valuable? Like, you know, this is 20, 30 years later now for both of us, you know, with AI and tutoring and In the future, do you, I mean, couldn't you just talk to an AI and figure stuff out?
It's a great question. Honestly, depends. It depends on the course. It depends on the curriculum. I would want to make sure that anybody who's going, into the sciences and doing cancer research or doctorate or doctors or, of course that they've got the education in the background.
Yeah.
However, I've hired great developers who have never been to school who taught themselves how to be developers. I've
Mm.
hired great sales folks who don't have a degree
Yeah.
and have become amazing sellers. I've also hired amazing growth marketers who basically learned the system and broke the system and have done amazing job for myself and for roles and companies that I worked for. So the answer is it depends. Now, all things being equal, to the point I mentioned earlier about what my former boss said, then yeah, the degree is definitely going to help you. But if I had to line up one person with the degree and one person that actually had the life experience and that can have the proof point to show that they actually made the difference all day long, I would take the experience.
Right. Yeah, but if you
And
have
I
two
don't care if
candidates
you
and
came from
you like them both, they both have equal experience, but one has the degree. I think the one with the degree gets more breaks. I think.
100%. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. At that point, you put in the time. And that was the point that my boss, Chris, had mentioned to me is like, dude, you can be the greatest. I mean, I think that year that he made me go back, my largest check was a $389,000 commission check 1 month.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So thinking about what I just said, that is a crazy amount of money that I was making as an individual seller. And he made me go back during that time. And that was very hard for me to even think about.
Yeah.
But you're right. All things being equal, there is always somebody that's going to have sold more than me that had a bigger commission check than me. Always that's going to take place.
Man. So what kind of number does that do in your head? I mean, if you're making upwards of six figures in a month in your 20s, I mean, walk me through your journey over 27 years to this is your first is this your first startup, or kind of walk us through the kind of the backstory to FlyMSG?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So actually, I spent all of my career up until for 18 years in corporate, and then after corporate, I started my first company, which was Vengreso, as a service company. So it was interesting. So I spent sales, all my time in sales, marketing, executive leadership roles, and really just following the corporate path. And I had two goals: either it was one, going to be speaking out on the main stage, or two, become a chief sales officer for and you fill in the blank. And I was running those paths in parallel. Interestingly enough, how it actually got started, my first company, which was Vengreso, that was actually Vengreso LLC. That was actually as a result of rolling out a digital sales training program as a VP of sales to 350 sellers. LinkedIn asked me to speak at their annual users conference in 2015. When I spoke there was my first time on a main stage opportunity. And so I really laid into it because I felt like, man, this was one of my goals, my career goals and paths, was to be able to be a speaker. So with that in mind, 3 months later, the company I was with was downsizing. I had been with a company that had downsized from 80,000 employees down to 40,000. I had fired enough people in my career or laid them off enough times that I knew I did not want to do that again. And so I took a
Yeah.
package from this company and I wrote an article. It was a blog article. And the title of the blog article was Dad, Dad, you said LinkedIn would make you money. And it was a conversation with my then 5-year-old, now 13-year-old. And I wrote this blog. It was an entire a depiction of what he thought LinkedIn would do and how it could help me get a job. Turns out 4 days later, I got a call from the head of America's marketing from a Fortune 100. And 5 days after that, I got a call from the head of sales enablement from another Fortune 100 who said, hey, I read your blog. I saw you speak at LinkedIn. Want to come over and work with us as a consultant? And so I said, sure, why not? Well, I'm looking for a job, might as well. And so I started the first consulting gig there. And then I said, man, I could do this on my own. I could really drive this from a training perspective. And so I decided that I was going to continue on this path and try to hit the goal of sales influencer, of which I did, social media sales influencer. And then I said, literally, it was within 10 months, I said, you know what, this is not big enough for me. I'm a big corporate guy, always been. I was like, what if I can merge together a bunch of individual small businesses that are all doing the exact same thing to collectively form the largest digital sales training company? And so I called up a guy. I was on an advisory board for a startup company, a SaaS sales startup company. And I called up the CEO and I said, "Hey, who did you guys use to help you put together the construct of your deal?" And he told me who he used. So I called up the guy. It was in December of 2016. I was in Hawaii. The only time that he could do a call was 5:30 a.m. in the morning. And so I
Which
got
is
on
like
the
a
call with
8:30
him.
West Coast or whatever.
Exactly
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And so he only had the morning to be able to talk with me. And so I got up at 5:30. That call turned into a 3-hour long call. And that was December of 2016. He told me everything, how we would do it. I said, let's do it. How much would it cost? He told me what it cost. By January 23rd, 2017, I was pitching 14 people to merge together our companies. By
Mm.
April of 2017, just a few short months later, I had 7 of those people sign on the dotted line, and we merged and formed Vengreso. So it was my first time like doing a roll up,
Yeah.
and it was a lot of work. That was certainly the hardest thing I ever did. And in the first year and a half, we exited 3 of those 7 partners. And then after that, 4 of those partners remained on up until a couple of them a couple of years ago. And then one of them recently departed as well from the journey. So how we got to FlyMSG was we were actually out there delivering prospecting training. That was our sole focus. So if you think about the spectrum of sales training, you go from pre-hello to the hello, and then from the hello to the close. Well, there's at least 30 major iconic brands, Sandler, Miller, Hyman Group, Medic, Gap, all these different training companies that go from the hello to the close. But nobody was focusing on the pre-hello to the hello, which arguably is the hardest part of the sales job.
Yeah.
And,
It's so hard
and
that you outsource it in some cases, or
you outsource it, you
yeah,
put
or you
BDRs, you
hire
comb through
junior
them.
kids and you're like, here's the phone book, go for it, and it's a
Exactly.
sink or
And in
swim a
fact, we
lot of,
actually did a
yeah.
study on this across 2 years of a study that we did research. Our last one had 1,295 sales respondents from all different walks of life, all B2B sales, all different countries. And the question was, what's the hardest part of the sales cycle? And it was getting the first conversation. So we knew that we had it right. So we did that. And as we trained a very dedicated digital sales training program, in that program, we actually gave to our students over 60 different sales scripts that they could use for prospecting, cold email, outreach template to how to wish somebody a happy work anniversary on LinkedIn, and then how to use that to convert it into a meeting. So what we found was is sellers were taking our copy and they would keep it on the Word document, but then they were given another playbook from their enablement team, and they had that playbook. And then they had their own set of greatest hits that they use for templates and snippets on a Google Doc, Word Doc, OneNote, Evernote, Notepad, notebook, draft email, or worse yet, Brian, they would hunt and
Mm.
peck for it in their sent folder. And so
Mm.
what we discovered is that on average, an email communication correspondence could take anywhere between 1 minute to up to 15 minutes per customer per engagement.
Wow.
So we decided to bring forth FlyMSG. And FlyMSG in its then current form was an auto text expander. And as an auto text expander, you can take all of the different snippets, messages, templates, put it into the cloud, and with a few short keystrokes, you can build out that entire template anywhere online. Now, the benefit to a seller was that I could be on Salesforce and use my FlyMSG, my snippet.
Right.
I could be on email, Gmail, or Outlook Online. I could be on LinkedIn or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and I could build out the same message when you said, let's book a meeting. I could build that out in any one of those places and have it stored in one spot.
Yeah.
So
It's
that
almost like a
really
decision
actually
tree,
was,
right? That salespeople go through. It's, from the to the hello and beyond. There's a certain kind of decision tree of conversation that happens of like, hey, we do X. Are you interested? Yes, no, maybe, whatever. There's just so many branches of that conversation that can happen. And so what you're describing in the SDR playbook is your great sales organizations will map all that out. And so the SDRs, who are generally kind of pretty junior kids, know exactly, okay, I drag and drop or copy and paste this message in this situation. This is how we respond to this. And what
yeah.
you did with FlyMSG initially is you systematized that into a SaaS application that sat in the browser.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what we did. In fact, we just rolled out to an enterprise with 100 BDRs globally. One of the BDRs at SCO, when sales kickoff last week, I was there and presenting there around sales prospecting. And one of the BDRs showed me, he said, come here, come here, come here, come here. He says, take a look at this. And he showed me his OneNote. He had 12 different tabs at the top. Each of those 12 tabs represented a different use case. Inside of those 12 tabs, he had anywhere between 5 to 25 messages that he had stored there. And get this.
Along the kind of that right column thing where it's like, yeah.
Exactly. Like basic decision trees. Like if they say this, do that. But here's the best part. He used SalesLoft religiously. So they still have a sales engagement tool, right? So that's the automation part. But what happens when someone says, hey, I'm interested in booking a meeting? Well, I got to sit there and I got to type out, sounds good, Brian. Love to be able to schedule a conversation. Here are 3 dates and times. If that doesn't work, here's my calendar link. Go find it, copy, paste it. And I can type that out. That takes me 90 seconds. Well, the concept with FlyMSG was if I just type in -BAM, it'll build out my entire message. And it takes literally as long as it takes to type -BAM, which is a matter of seconds. So that concept that we built was around helping to improve the productivity of an individual seller when prospecting, which is the hardest part. And everything else now started to take off after that.
What's interesting about FlyMSG, I think, that you bring to the table that maybe some other SaaS apps don't have, like TextBlaze, for instance, is you actually have the knowledge of how to go from point A to point B in the sales process. So to what degree, when you're implementing this into a sales organization, is it completely off the shelf? Here's the playbook for this kind of software sale. It's a 10,000 ACV SaaS software sale. Here's that playbook. Versus how much is it customizable? What's the implementation look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. So essentially, no company to date has come to us and said, hey, I only want FlyMSG and none of your education and learning. So that's what makes us quite unique and different in the space, is that the number one user of a SaaS tool like a Text Expander is the salesperson. Then it's customer success and customer service, and then it's individual business owners. Right? That represents over 60% of all of our users on the platform. Everybody else is every Tom, Dick, and Harry you could possibly think of. A pharmacist, accounts payable, real estate broker, you name it, right? But for the sales-led growth motion, that's where it starts from. But interestingly enough, I have this saying, Brian, that we talk about all the time, which is a fool with the tool is still a fool. So what we did is we took our 7 years of legacy training content. We brought that on-demand content into FlyMSG. And now we created a Fly Learning portal where an individual seller can now go in and actually learn how to go about engaging with their target buyer and how to go about creating messaging. Then we give them the tool FlyMSG to quickly deploy that messaging. And it very much complements the SalesLofts, the Outreaches, the Apollos of the world, those sales engagement tools. It sits right on top of that particular stack. And then what we did is we said, that's not good enough. Where with the problem that we saw with sellers is that every leader says, well, go connect on LinkedIn, go engage with him, go do a comment, a post, right? But what the problem is that a seller has when I go to LinkedIn and I look at Brian's profile, first I go to your profile, I'm being told to go engage on LinkedIn, then I go read every one of your posts, and then I try to figure out which one am I going to comment on. Once I figure out which one I'm going to comment on, I then turn around and try to write a comment. And then I sit there and I write, rewrite, delete, delete, etc. What do I end up doing? In almost 85% of the cases, most sales reps do nothing. And all they do is like a post, thumbs up, or love. And they expect that they're going to get the attention.
Which gets lost in the sea of likes. Like I'll have, maybe hundreds of likes or comments on one of my posts. And I don't know everybody who did that, but I do remember the comments. Right? Like if you just like or thumbs up or heart something, that's just lost. Nobody reads that. It's just too many of them. But if you comment insightfully,
that's exactly what happens is that reps say, oh, LinkedIn didn't work for me. Well, what did you do? And it's funny, in this last customer that we just did, I stood in front of the room and I said, how many of you use LinkedIn for prospecting? 100 out of 100 reps, BDRs, raised their hand. I said, fantastic. This is great. How many of you have actually used LinkedIn for research? Everybody raises their hand. How many of you have actually used it for prospecting? Everybody raises their hand. Then I said, you're all liars. You know why? And they were like, and I said, you're lying.
Yeah.
Because I just did an audit of 35 out of 100 people. And guess how many of you have actually written a comment and mentioned the actual individual on someone's post?
Mm.
Zero out of. So if you truly were doing social engagement and trying to capture that individual's attention, it's more than just like a post, right? There are things that you have to do. So that is one of the other things that we said was, wait a minute, a seller has a problem with being able to say, Brian, write a thoughtful individual reply that captures your attention and that tags them. So we said, well, wait a minute, we can solve that problem. This is what I've been teaching sellers for the last 7 years. So we took all of our training, we programmed the AI, and we brought the LinkedIn commenting and LinkedIn post creation right into LinkedIn using FlyMSG. And that has actually been our catalyst for growth in the organization. And now the text expander is on top of that, where individuals are gaining time. And bro, let me tell you, by the end of this month, I'm so freaking pumped. This is my shameless plug, because it took us basically about 1 year to type out 650,000 characters for our customers. And it took us 5 months to get to the billion. And we're just this shy, man. And so a big splash is going to be happening here at the end of this month, where we will have typed 1 billion characters across all of our users, which is freaking amazing. And that's actually a 22.77 hours per month savings in productivity savings, where in the example, AI is reading the post, and it's human assisted AI, by the way, reading the post, writing the reply for the rep. The rep has to do 2 things in less than 2 minutes. 1, read it for contextual relevance. 2, mention the individual so it tags them. And the comments, I programmed the AI myself because I've been teaching this for 7 years, and it's pretty hot, man. It's pretty hot.
Right. And let's talk about that. I mean, that's another great thing, another segue. I guess there was an evolution from selling with social to the modern selling podcast. Talk about your podcast and kind of the, what are some of the key topics and themes covered in it, and how does that feed into inform the FlyMSG go to market and platform?
Great. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah. So I do have a podcast. It's 7 years running, over 250 episodes. It's called the Modern Selling Podcast. I originally created it as a model to avoid writing a book. Right. So everybody told me to become a sales influencer, you have to write a book. And anytime someone told me in my entire life, including my wife, don't tell her.
You had to do something.
Yeah, exactly. I want to do the exact opposite. So when they told me I had to write a book, I was like, no, I'm going to do video and I'm going to do a podcast. So I created this podcast so that I could avoid writing a book. And I built my brand based upon then called the Selling with Social podcast. But that was too myopic. Right? That was too myopic. It was very niche, very focused, and it was all around social selling, but that wasn't the case. And the need of the market, is around the omni-channel approach to prospecting. And so I very much focus it on around prospecting. But here's the thing. If you think about the channels that our leaders are trying to engage with today, or an individual, a founder, you've got email and you've got phone. Now, we don't do any phone training. That's tried and true. There's 1,000 consultants that do that around the globe. And so we don't touch that with a 10-foot pole. Email training. We actually teach you how to write emails that slices through the noise, but I don't do cadences. I don't build those cadences. I don't want to build cadences because I hate automation. All right. That having been said, now we need to think about how do we open up our channel to a 3rd and 4th channel? Because when we open up a 3rd and 4th channel, we actually increase our engagement rate by up to 40%. Now think about this. If I'm cold calling you, Brian, you don't want to answer the phone. In fact, many people have their phone turned on so that if it says no number programmed in my caller ID, send it right to voicemail.
Yeah,
that's
I pay
me.
for the Verizon filter. It filters out everything basically at this point.
There you go. Now we've got email. Today alone, I unsubscribed from 17 newsletters that I somehow got added on, and that is a daily occurrence or a sales sequence that I got put on, right? All right. Now we look at how do I engage on LinkedIn? How do I use video? How do I use text messaging? How do I use gift marketing? How do I use account-based podcasting?
Ooh.
Whoa, what do I mean by that?
Oh.
Well, bro, I didn't realize the benefit of creating a podcast was I could call up any chief sales officer that I wanted from any company,
Yeah.
any company.
Yeah.
And I could say, I've got a podcast. I'm looking for thought leadership. I'd love to have you on. Would you be interested?
Boom, boom.
Boom. Millions of dollars closed as a direct result of inviting the chief commercial officer of HP, right?
Yeah.
Like company. And then as it got big enough, then I had companies that came to me, that large, huge, mammoth billion-dollar sales technology companies that are paying me to sponsor them on my podcast.
Love
So
that.
this actually served a benefit in many different ways. And so I used that podcast. I started out with it being about a niche focused social. And then I said, no, we got to think modern selling. Modern selling is about using every weapon in our quiver, right?
Yeah.
Every arrow in the quiver to be able to slice through the noise. It might
Right.
be related to gift marketing. It might be direct mail. It might be text. It might be phone. It might be, and you fill in the blank. And that's what the whole idea behind the transformation behind the Modern Selling podcast was.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's similar reasons I started the Ignite podcast, right? I realized I have a lot of interesting people like you in the network, and that I can bring on and interview and learn from, and hopefully provide some value to my founders and to my LPs and to Team Ignite generally, and to my partners, and it just all kind of self reinforces. And I love that you did that with sales as well.
I was going to say, Brian, one last thing. For any founder listening in, or any salesperson or any sales leader, look, this is not hard to create. You got a Zoom account, you got a Calendly link, or a HubSpot link, or a fill in the blank link. And if you want to see my playbook, reach out to me. I'll tell you exactly what I say to them in the beginning, and I'll tell you exactly what I say to them once they're on the show. You record it on Zoom, it records in 720p high definition, and then you publish it. I mean, it's so easy, and the ability to do this is pretty easy, and it's within everyone's reach.
You're talking about the podcast.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah. Use that as an opportunity to be able to get into someone's door. And by the way, you spend time talking an hour with somebody on the phone, and then you finish the recording, you
Yeah.
hit thanks very much, and then you say to them, by the way, Brian, do you know what I do?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Well, let
Yeah.
me explain. You
Yeah.
explain in your 2-minute elevator pitch, and they said, that's interesting. I'd like to know more. You don't say, let's schedule a
Yeah.
meeting. And I mean, the meetings just pop off like that, and deals have closed like that. And some of my current advisory board members now are individuals that I pitched on a podcast, closed them as a customer, and are now guiding us into the next phase.
I love it. Yeah. We're all just helping each other. I wonder, with sales and marketing, what's funny, because I've been around this game a long time, not as long as you, but and not as deep, but definitely around, right? Doing sales and marketing demand gen and building marketing automation and ad tech tools, sales tech tools. And so I've approached it from many different angles: marketer, salesperson, product manager. Does marketing ruin everything? Does sales ruin everything? You know what I'm saying? 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20, you could cold email, right? And now cold email is like almost gone because like the spam filters, and it's just really hard to do. Same with content marketing, right? Let's do content marketing. Let's write this. Let's write that, and then it just gets overly saturated, and you can't stand out. There's sales and marketing just generate so much noise over time in every single channel that eventually they just get watered down. Or can you find ways to stand above the crowd?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the answer is first off, I think a seller should be a smarketer. A smarketer. That is a salesperson and marketer in one. Why? Because I actually have to think about, let's just say I'm selling to you, Brian, right? I'm selling to you. I have to think about, all right, which channel is Brian going to engage with me on? And then I have to start marketing directly to you. It's going to be email, it's going to be a text, it's going to be a phone, it's going to be a you fill in the blank. I have to really sit there and think about that, right? So, and I have to understand your emotion behind the buying process. What is going to make you tick? What is your business problem? How do I solve that business problem with value, right? That is all part of the marketers, what the marketer's role is. But if you look at the marketing side, the problem with so many marketers is they have no idea what the salesperson does, and you never actually sat in a day in the life of. And in my opinion, every marketer actually needs to sit a day in the life of a salesperson and understand the challenges they're going through.
Yeah.
Because then you'll write copy that actually slices through the noise. But in answer to your long-winded answer to your question of, no, you need both of them. You need both sales and marketing. And you can slice through the noise and you can do things like podcasts. Here's the thing about that. I'll go back to the account-based podcasting model. You have account-based marketing. Okay, great. That means you're throwing a ton of money in terms of advertising. Go account-based podcasting. It'll cost you a smidget, a fraction of what it costs to do account-based marketing. And what you can do is you now do personal outreach to that individual. You can easily get to the administrative assistant, especially if it's a Fortune 1000, easily, and let them know that you're the executive host of, and you're looking for, and you want them to have on the show. Boom. I don't think I've had an executive assistant yet in 7 years. I have to think about that. In 7 years, I don't think I've had an executive assistant say, no, we're not interested in being on a podcast. Every time they hear, they're like, that sounds amazing. Let me talk to John,
you have a
Billy,
podcast?
Mary.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I can definitely punch, and I'm only 35 episodes in at this point. I think it'll be episode 35 or 36. I can definitely punch way above my weight class as this little VC fund with a little podcast. I could get guests on the show that I wouldn't normally be able to talk to, necessarily.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's pretty amazing.
Now, as a salesperson, we do got to think about how to slice through the noise, and things like, as an example, sending another email, leaving another voicemail, doing a blind LinkedIn connection request. Those are the stupid things that get you no results. But now if you think about it, how could I make an impact? What about if you created a video? And oh, by the way, the number one error when someone creates a video using OneMob, Hippo Video, Vidyard, Loom, I don't care what it is, the number one problem is you've got a giant play button sitting right in front of your face, just like this. Now, the whole purpose of using video in the sales process is so that they can see this, which is that smile. And if you're not showing your face, your eyes, the genuineness of building trust immediately from a visual perspective, you're going to lose your buyer. So we got to think about those types of things. And I think the answer to your question of, are we just doing too much? We're doing too much of the wrong stuff and throwing crap at the wall thinking that we're going to get different types of results. Do more focused, personalized, hyper-personalized engagement and outreach. Check your data. Don't have the period or the character or the unicorn in your name and be sending it out to Mario with a unicorn symbol inside there, right? Because I've got that inside of my LinkedIn profile to see who's automating it. No, you got to really be focused on how to be able to engage, and that will make a difference.
Yeah. So what do early stage startups get wrong about sales?
Early stage startups, what they get wrong about sales is that they think that hiring a seller is going to solve their problem. Here's the thing. I don't care if you're a founder who is the technical founder. You started the company for a reason. You see that there's a problem. Now, provided that you've got at least presumably product market fit, or you've proven that you're almost there with product market fit. You're solving a problem and you're passionate about it. So the worst thing that you can do is try to throw a salesperson in the mix and have them go sell your passion, your vision, your dream. I just closed another enterprise customer last week. Matter of fact, I texted you about it, right? I closed another enterprise customer last week. I wrote a thank you note on Sunday evening. Now, I wanted to give us some time between the time they signed the contract and a thank you note on Sunday evening. I wanted the customer to know I was thinking about them on Sunday evening at 6 o'clock. The response back was at 6:30 a.m. in the morning. Mario, we signed this deal because we believe in caps. YOU. That's what the customer said.
Oh, I love that.
Now, thankfully, I have the ability to be able to articulate vision, right?
Yeah.
But the customer truly believed in how we're going about solving this problem, and that the solution that we bring to the table with FlyMSG will help them solve this problem. And that's where I think most founders make a mistake at, is they don't want to do the hard work of having a conversation because they feel uncomfortable. They don't know how to articulate it. Well, guess what? Go get some training, have somebody coach and mentor you, especially if you've got an angel investor, if you've got a VC. Hopefully that VC is worth anything for you, and they've got a team of advisors that can sit in a room and say, tell me in 2 sentences or less, what business problem you solve.
Yeah.
And that you can articulate that. So that's probably the biggest mistake that I see. The second biggest mistake that I see is founders want to throw out throw money at trying to market. Brian, in 7 years, I have spent a whopping total of $15,000 in advertising.
Wow. And how many years?
7 years.
Wow.
15,000.
So only 2,000 a
My
year.
list is, what's that?
Only 2,000 a year on average.
Exactly correct.
Wow.
Now,
that's crazy because I've ran ad budgets of $250,000 a month in Silicon Valley.
So here's what I can tell you. Think about this for a second. To your point,
500,000 a month.
I know when I spent that money. I spent 7,000 of that 15,000 last year because I wanted to test out in the product-led growth space. Would this work, right?
Yeah.
That's where I spent 7,000 of that. The other part was when we were running our crowdfunding campaign for our first initial raise. That was about $5,000 right there. And then about $2,000 more was spent when we were running for doing ads for our sales training program.
Wow.
But here's what I did. One of the things I didn't tell you was our claim to fame was when the Miller-Heiman Group. The Miller-Heiman Group is arguably the most well-known, iconic, legendary sales training brand out there. It was a 40-year iconic brand until acquired by Korn Ferry.
It's not Grant
Miller-Heiman, not Grant Cardone, no. Not Grant Cardone. The Miller-Heiman Group I actually wrote a check when I was 21 years old for $7,000, my personal check, to go get trained on the Miller-Heiman sales methodology. Okay? Now,
not Brian Tracy?
Not Brian Tracy. No.
It's not Zig Ziglar? I'm throwing out all the sales guys that I learned from,
exactly.
25 years ago. Yeah.
So I wrote this check when I was 21 years old, $7,000, 5-day training course. Fast forward now to a couple years ago. The CEO of Miller-Heiman Group, the then CEO, had his assistant reach out to me. Somehow, Vengreso got put on their radar screen. Now, likely because they were looking at acquiring an acquisition target for the prospecting side because they handled the hello to close. But here's the thing. I had a 30-person training company then. Let me give you a perspective. Their social reach and impressions reached about 15 million people a year. That was with a 700-person company. With a 30-person company, our social impressions for that same exact year and reach was 98 million people. Now, we got put on their radar screen because we were destroying the Miller-Heiman Group when it came to
who's
marketing
the
and social
Vengreso or
what's that?
Who's the we in this story?
The Vengreso, Vengreso. Yeah. Vengreso LLC.
Right.
And so they wanted to know what was the secret sauce. So a long-winded answer to your question as a founder is you think that I need to go spend money. No. I didn't know this when I decided I wanted to become an influencer, what the impact of doing video and podcasting was. But I found a niche. I started doing video and podcasting. So as a founder, here's my message to you. One of the biggest mistakes is you think you can hire a salesperson to be able to sell your passion and vision. You can't. Don't make that mistake. Number two, you want to throw a bunch of money. Unless you've got money to burn up the wazoo, $5 million check. All right, burn it. But unless you've got that money, then be smart about it. Be laser focused. And what you're going to go out there and do is you're going to go out there and create video. You're going to go out there and create customer testimonial videos. You're going to go out there and create social content around your domain. You're going to go out there and own hashtags inside the domain. My most commonly known hashtag that I owned personally under the Vengreso brand was hashtag sales, hashtag social selling, hashtag sales prospecting. When you look that up on Twitter a few years ago, before we started converting away in the last year, you found maybe 7 people, but always our founders were on the top of those hashtags. Why? Because that's what we owned. So own that domain, and you don't have to spend big bucks in order to be able to own a domain. That's my best advice.
Yeah. And I think that's easy to do if you're passionate about solving the problem. I think a lot of founders, to your point, kind of, a lot of the ones I meet, you're either good at building things or selling things, right? So like you would be a founder in the latter. You're good at selling things, right? But a lot of founders are good at building things. They come from a product or engineering technical background. And so a lot of the sales and marketing and content marketing and account-based podcast is just like, what are you talking about? I'll just throw some money at it and hire somebody to do it. But what you're saying is, hey, bad advice. You actually need to get out there and own that space and socially sell and follow Mario's advice here, and potentially buy
That and
FlyMSG and implement these practices and playbooks.
absolutely. Well, FlyMSG will help you with the LinkedIn commenting and post creation, by the way. But what I was going to say is something to think about is people ask me, like, if you were to redo Vengreso Inc. corporation now, FlyMSG now, which will be changing the name shortly. If you were to redo it, what would you do differently? And what I would do differently is I would go to market with a technical co-founder.
Mm.
As opposed to learning how to be the CTO and managing that entire organization.
Yeah.
Now, the reverse is also true. What you just said, a lot of propeller heads, don't be offended, co-founders out there, because I'm one too. You know how to build great product, but what you don't know how to do is market and sell.
Mm.
So don't go to market without a sales and marketing counterpart as a co-founder.
Yeah.
And I think that's super important inside there. And I will tell you that of all the meetings that I've ever had with the VC, about 30% of the VCs have walked away because I didn't have a technical co-founder. The other 70% said, I don't care about that. Look what you already accomplished. Clearly, you know what you're doing, right? So that will slow you down. But the reverse is true as well. You don't got a sales or marketing counterpart that can help you drive sales-led growth or marketing-led growth. No, I think more VCs will say, no, you need to prove that you can drive revenue before I'll invest. Right. And I think that will be a big challenge for them.
Yeah, and I think to your point, you kind of need both, right? You can't just have the technical and product chops or the design chops or just the sales and marketing chops. I think you got to have all the above. And I think historically, a lot of the best teams and the best outcomes have had multiple founders that can wear multiple hats, right? And complement each other.
That's it. What you just said right there is absolutely it. Now, what I did was I built FlyMSG and I learned how to be a product officer and a technical officer over the course of 2 years before we converted into a SaaS company.
Right.
So I used the service revenue to help fund the SaaS revenue. So I had that privilege of being able to do that. And frankly, if I were to redo this all over again, I would look for that technical co-founder to be able to roll this out and go to market. But that having been said, I learned a lot of this, right? And I studied. And by the way, here's my rule of thumb. My rule of thumb is if I don't know it myself, I'm going to go out there and learn it. And I'm going to take time away from my sleep, not from my family, from my sleep. Because then I know that what I'm willing to sacrifice, if I'm working between 10 and 2 a.m. in the morning, that's coming from my sleep, not my kids, not my wife. That's coming from my sleep. And I'll know after a certain period of time whether or not I want to stop doing that. Right. Yeah. And if I don't want to do it anymore, you know that it's time to give up. But until then you better learn whatever it is that you don't know and better wear the multiple hats that you need to wear.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is a really important lesson for founders that I'd love to dig into and get your kind of sage advice, which is the do it versus delegate it debate, right? You know, I think general wisdom is like you should do it so you know how hard it is, kind of what the surface area, what it feels like, what are some of the gotchas and pitfalls. You should know enough to be dangerous, and so when you hire somebody to do it, you know what you're hiring them to do and how hard it is. What are your thoughts on doing it versus delegating it for founders?
Jesus, it depends on the topic, right? So I'll be frank. Our first rollout of AI, it wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing, right? It wasn't bad. It wasn't amazing. We were getting a lot of product feedback. The responses are kind of regurgitating, just kind of the post. It didn't have, the depth that I was looking for. So I spent a month and a half reprogramming the AI personally myself. I learned exactly what was going to make the AI tick to write in the voice that we wanted to write in, to write in the response that we wanted to write to respond in, whether it be a thoughtful reply, an optimistic reply, or a curious reply. Now, do you think that I wanted to learn that, Brian? Do you think I wanted to become an AI prompt engineering expert? No, I didn't. But I did it because I needed to understand how to make it better. And we didn't have that resource available on the team to be able to make it better. Yeah. And so my technical leader that I have now, sure, he can put it all together, all the bells and whistles, but did I expect him to actually be a prompt engineer and to write it? You are a social media content writer. You have amazing amount of experience. Did I expect him to do that? No, because I wanted him coding. That's what I wanted him doing, right? Yeah. So it depends. And the other part is Did I want to be able to learn how to run a sprint, a technology sprint? Did I really want to know how to do that? No, I really didn't want to know how to do that. But guess what? I know exactly how to do it, and I know exactly how to run it. I know exactly how to budget because I own budgets, I own finance, I own costs. I know exactly how to be able to what I can do to commit to market. And honestly, now that I know how to do all these things and now that I'm in control of them, I know exactly what our marketing campaign is going to look like for the month of February. I just got off the phone and said, hey, we're going to run a big marketing campaign around 1 billion characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody in the world knows. Anybody who was on our email marketing list this past Tuesday, a couple days ago, they got an email saying something big is about to be announced. We started the campaign 4 weeks early, right? 4 weeks early. What are we doing? Building up anticipation. What was the response? People wrote back, what's happening?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
guys okay? Are you going out of business? Is everybody,
Did you close a big
no,
round of
we're fine. We're just,
financing, or yeah,
yeah, exactly. Big round of financing. What's
get
happening?
acquired, or
So
yeah,
anyways,
yeah,
so with that in mind, I can't answer that question. It's both, I
yeah,
think. And the other thing too is you have to be in a small company environment. I think you have to find those individuals, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that will charge the hill with you,
yeah.
and that's uber important. If I won't say this about anybody that worked for us, but I have worked in the past with individuals who were what I call a B player, right? And every organization has B players. They're there and they do enough
Yeah,
to get
professionals
the
in place
job
is what we
done.
call them at Microsoft. They're not doing enough to get promoted, but they're not doing too little to get fired. They're just turning in the work. Yeah,
Exactly. Right? But in a startup environment,
you can't
there's no
have
room
that.
for
Yeah,
that.
you can't have that at all.
You cannot have that.
Everybody has
So
to be
you've got to be
110%.
running
Yeah,
150%. You've got when you're running, they're running. And
1000%.
if they're not, exactly, there you go. Take it to the next
Yeah.
level. So I think that's really hard. And when you think about that question, build it or do it yourself, or
Mm,
do it yourself, or outsource it. Um, it comes to a point where sometimes you just have to roll up your sleeves and you just have to get
yeah.
it done, and you have to do it and sit in a room. Last week, I sat in a room for 3 hours and I did an analysis, a deep dive of how we were going to scale our content marketing. Now, back in April of 2023, we were sitting at 3,000 organic visitors per month, the lowest that it had ever been in the entire company history. We used to be at 10,000 organic visitors easily, just salespeople, sales leaders all day long, right? Now, 10,000 wasn't very big, but it was enough for Salesforce and Oracle and SAP to come ask for backlinks for my site. We got down to the super all-time low. I had to get into a room and peel back the onion and figure out what was going on. And now I'm happy to say in the last 30 days, we did 19.2 thousand people organic alone on Google that are on our site now as a result of really growing and scaling what we're doing with FlyMSG and really learning how to drive content correctly and training our team to do that. And that would not have happened unless I had actually peeled back the onion and got into the room and got dirty.
I love that. So you've actually been implementing AI into FlyMessage. How do you think AI is going to impact sales and marketing in the coming years? Like, looking through your crystal ball as someone that's actively applying this to various channels of sales and marketing.
I actually think you won't be hired unless you have AI experience. I really do. I think that's one of the questions that people ask is, how did you use AI in your last role? And
Mm,
you better come up with some really amazing, great stories. You
mm,
better be able to articulate, I used AI to do da 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 da, and it produced da 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 da, and I won da 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 da, right? X number of
yeah,
dollars.
yeah,
And if you don't have that skill set, you're an old dinosaur. Sorry. So if you're in my age category, which is the 45 and older, right? That 45 and older, we grew up selling a very different way. The
right,
55 and older, very different way,
yeah,
right? And there's not a lot of people that are my age that are in the 45 and older that have, that started out at 19 years old, right? That
yeah,
usually doesn't happen. It's just somewhere around 25, 26 years old is when you start getting that experience. So I tell a lot of the old timers that if you're in that 55-year-old category and you're struggling getting that job and that role, and you open up a consulting firm, well, dude or dudette, you better start figuring out this AI thing. You better figure out social. You better not hide your profile picture on LinkedIn. That's stupid, right? Because you're in secret mode or you don't want anybody to see you. Get over it. And so I really do think that AI is going to be something that if you don't have the experience touching, doing, playing with
Mm.
results, then you're going to be obsolete, young or old.
Yeah, I agree. Mario, how can people find you if they're interested in finding out more about your podcast and FlyMSG?
Well, first off, you can go to LinkedIn. You can make sure that you send me a personalized connection request. That means you add a note
Mm.
and you say you heard me on the Ignite podcast with Mr. Brian Bell. Please do not send me a connection request that is just that checkbox, because I will ignore it. I have no idea how you know me, but say you heard me with Brian on this podcast. That's the first thing. Go to flymsg.io, flymsg.io. And you'll be able to get access for free. You can utilize FlyMSG, play with it. And if you're a sales leader or an individual founder and you're looking for help to try to drive more conversations, to be able to create more hellos, then you better sign up for that 14-day trial under FlyMSG and utilize it. You'd be foolish not to utilize it. And we've basically bridged together the world of multiple technologies underneath one super productivity app to save you time. And more importantly, we've got the education to help you achieve success.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Mario. I know it's always a great episode when I don't get to the rapid fire questions and we run out of time. I could have talked to you for another hour or two, and I think I'm gonna be on your podcast soon, so we'll have another chance to partner up and shoot the shit for another hour. So I'm looking forward to that. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me. And yes, I can't wait for you to be on my podcast as well.
Just podcast all the way down. Thanks so much.